Tucker Carlson had interviewed the former chief of police for the Capitol Police. In this leaked clip from the National Pulse, it appears to have some heavy implications. The police chief saying that it appears January 6th was a cover-up and that certain actors may have wanted January 6th to happen. And he's talking about law enforcement, not Donald Trump. When you piece this all together, it starts to look very strange. And a reasonable person might say, hey, maybe Donald Trump is being set up. Now, I don't know that for sure. I think it is a reasonable assumption. But people often ask me, do I really think Donald Trump can win in 2024? Of course I think he can win in 2024. He won in 2016. And they say, yeah, but he didn't win in 2022. Sure. Because he made mistakes. Because Republicans made mistakes. Democrats played dirty. But they had to play dirty. This idea that Trump cannot win is predicated upon an assumption. The deep state, the bureaucratic state, the permanent government, whatever you want to call it, has such pronounced control over the whole system that they need not do anything. But that's just not true. This clip shows that there are efforts underway, or at least I should say suggests efforts are undertaken in desperation to try and stop Donald Trump. That is, Trump absolutely could win. Now I'm going to play this clip for you, and then I want to talk about some of the new developments that are coming through with what's going on and what's happening with Donald Trump's indictment. New information, of course. But consider, in this clip, it is choppy for some reason. I'm not sure exactly why. The National Pulse got this clip from, it's Tucker Carlson's show, Tucker Carlson Today. Of course, he's now producing his own show. We've got information about Joe Biden as well. They titled this, Fox News Deletes Capitol Police Chief Saying It Was a Cover-Up in Tucker Carlson Interview. So it is choppy, but I'm going to play this clip for you now. I was to a National Pulse. They released this, but it's important that we comment on this.
They're very restrained and rational and not give an overstatement, obviously, but the facts that you're describing are shocking.
I was say, the reason why I've had a lot of people ask me, why did you write this book? I try to do what I can to get the truth out.
Yes.
They didn't want me to testify in February 23rd at the Senate hearing. They only wanted people that are still currently in positions on the Hill. I actually had to go and talk to a friend of mine on one of the oversight committees and say, I will come there in person. I want to be there. I want to testify. So I'm glad you think I'm reserved. To be honest with you, I'm a little pissed off because it doesn't have to happen. If people were...
He said this didn't have to happen. He chopped out, but it sounds like that's what he said. He says it again. Reporting
the intelligence correctly. If I was allowed to do my job as the chief, I got a significant experience. If I was allowed to do my job as the chief, we wouldn't be here today. This didn't have to happen. Then see how you're out there, you're lambasted in public, and it's all, everything appears to be a cover-up. Like I said, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but when you look at the information the intelligence that it had, military had, it's all watered down. I'm not getting intelligence. I'm denied support National Guard in advance. I'm denied National Guard while we're under attack for 71 minutes.
He was denied National Guard.
Fight.
Yeah.
A fight for a couple of minutes.
Yeah,
wears you out.
1 minute.
I was going to say 60 seconds, 3 minutes. Yeah, Let me tell you, it wears you out. My officers were fighting for 80 minutes before the protesters ever broke the first one with that.
Wait, can I say, so you described this as a failure to get the intelligence to the people who needed it, but it sounds like worse than, it sounds like they were hiding the intelligence.
And that's what I'm getting at is, could there possibly be people that actually did something to happen and kind of wanted something to happen?
They kind of wanted something to happen.
It's not a far stretch to begin.
Well, I don't know what the other explanation is.
It's sad when you start putting everything together and thinking about the way this played out.
And I'll also mention two things. One, police opening the doors and waving people into the extent that there was one individual who was acquitted of all charges because you can see on video the cops waving him in. You also have another video where a man walks up to two police officers and says, "Why aren't you stopping this?" And the cops do nothing. I got to tell you, I've made the point before, if Donald Trump did not order the police out on May 29th, he would still be president. I'll elaborate on it, but let's watch more of this clip.
It gets concerning. What was their end goal? You look at what's happening. Was that their end goal? I don't know.
Well, I mean, there's no question that what happened on January 6th has really helped the Democratic Party. It's bravely politicized the U.S. military and the intelligence agencies and the FBI. And those are all, I think, bad for America and violations of the Constitution, but they're all good for the Democratic Party. That's the fact. Like, that's what happened.
Absolutely. And I write about that because as a cop of 30 years, I'm a rule of law type of guy.
Yeah.
You know, there's a reason that Lady Justice is depicted with a blindfold. As soon as you cut that blindfold off, the fairness of our legal system goes out the window. And that is exactly what has happened. They have stripped that blindfold away from Lady Justice, and it's not perceived as being fair anymore.
This interview, of course, was conducted, let me make sure I get that national, or very restraint logo in there at the end, because shout out to them, this is you know, they sourced this clip. Of course, this interview was done well before Donald Trump was indicted because of January 6th. Now, part of the indictment, much of it has to do with Donald Trump trying to defraud the United States is the argument they're making, but January 6th plays a role in about half of the charges against him. That Donald Trump instructed people to engage in the behavior they did. It's all lies. It's all lies. And now we can see how this story progresses. January 6th rioter, Tuckercarlson guest said was a Fed, is arrested by FBI. So here's some latest news. Once again, they're saying, oh, but look, this guy was arrested. That proves it. Well, NBC isn't that saying that. They're saying he got arrested. Yeah, this is meaningless. Look, informants get arrested all the time. Agents get arrested all the time. The arrests are show arrests. They're mock arrests. But, you know, I don't know. I don't know for sure. I just thought this was important to bring up as it pertains to Tucker Carlson. We also have this story from The Guardian. Tucker Carlson claims in book Fox News firing was part of $787.5 million settlement. We've heard this one before. However, it's also been suggested, the reason I bring this one up, that the reason Tucker was fired was because of that clip we just saw. That Tucker was bringing on individuals, casting doubt on January 6th and how it all went down. Could it have been orchestrated in some way by individuals who wanted it to happen because they needed a pretext to accuse Trump of being an insurrectionist? Perhaps. In this story from the New York Times from January, they actually talk about Stephen A. Sund in his book, Ex-Capitol Police Chief Faults Intelligence Officials and Military in January 6th Attack. Stephen A. Sund wrote in his new book that intelligence possessed by the FBI and other agencies should have had them seeing red. He also criticized the military's slow response to the siege. And despite the fact that he wrote this book and he laid out his view of what happened back in January, the New York Times view is that he's blaming their failures. We actually talked with Tucker Carlson. He suggested, heavily implied, that someone wanted January 6th to happen. And many have speculated that there are intelligence agents that were encouraging all of this stuff to go down. There are questions about how Ray Epps was able to effectively get away with directly inciting the storming of the Capitol. He's on camera several times telling people to go into the building, instructing people to go to the Capitol. Yeah. Look, you know, if I were a betting man, if you came to me and asked me to place a bet, did elements of the Democratic Party and corrupt individuals want January 6th to happen? Yes or no? I'd bet yes. I mean, if you could definitively prove it, I would be willing to put the money on yes, easily. Because this is what people ask me when it comes to Donald Trump running in 2024. Well, he's running now, but running for the presidency 2024. Do you think he can actually win? And of course I say yes, but their response is always the deep state, the intelligence agencies, the Democrats, they will pull out every stop and do everything within their power to make sure that Trump cannot be president again. Yeah, they're evil. Jack Smith, the prosecutor, evil. Oh, I can break down why they're evil. It's really, really simple. Now, some may say, you know, a lot of these leftists and secularists and liberals will be like, there's no good or evil, it's philosophical. There's good and evil. There really is. And I look at good and evil in a couple different ways. There are moral absolutes. And these moral absolutes exist because, I'm not saying morals are absolute, but there are some absolute morals, like, you know, don't kill people. Exists everywhere, in every culture. There is a problem with killing the innocent unprovoked. Now, when it comes to the broader idea of killing people, of course, self-defense and justice and things like that play a role. But for the most part, we have There are universal elements to life in its existence that we hold to be true. And they are, and I'll say this, when I say absolute, I am being a bit hyperbolic. Of course, there are evil people, and that's why I call them evil, who feel that they have a right to take innocent life, to do whatever they want. That's the point. That's what evil is. When you can see that overwhelmingly 99.9999% of people don't want the innocent to be harmed, and we desperately try to save the lives of individuals, even our own enemies, you can see those that act with malice and seek to harm individuals for no other reason than their self-gratification or pleasure. That's what I would define as evil. And you can argue that it's not really because they subjectively view themselves as right. Yeah, but no. They're acting in a deviant manner. So what do I see with the Democrats and Jack Smith? You can argue that the intelligence agencies are doing this because they want to preserve the American power structure, the liberal economic order, Western values, to prevent China from taking over. Western values are truth, honesty, peace, democratic institutions, constitutions. If these individuals truly feel they're good, but would impose dictatorial regime policy to win power, they're evil. They're exactly the same thing that they claim to be fighting. Thus, all I really see is a bunch of evil, disgusting, twisted monsters claiming that they're fighting evil, disgusting, twisted monsters. And therein lies the great challenge of the moral war. Do we recognize that if we adopt the tactics of evil, we become evil? Do we recognize that if we refuse to strike back with appropriate means, we lose? It's a great conundrum, my friends. If you know your opponent is cheating, do you decide to be a cheater as well because you want to win? Or do you refuse to cheat knowing that you will lose? It's tough, isn't it? If you lose, congratulations, you've lost power and evil wins. If you engage in evil tactics, congratulations, evil wins. There's only one hope that I have. The power of goodness, honesty, integrity, true American values, and meritocracy, personal responsibility, can just be strong enough to overcome evil. And that's what I see with these individuals. Which brings me to this tweet from juddlegum. Juddlegum, I don't know if I could say is evil or just an apparatus of evil. But I can show you, I can prove to you, they're lying, manipulating, cheating, and stealing to gain power. Much of it could be based on ignorance. Some people do evil things because they're completely ignorant and they're well-intentioned. That could be this guy. Let me read you this thread. Juddlegum says, Washington Post, Axios, CNN, and the New York Times are all reporting that to convict Trump, Jack Smith has to prove Trump knew he was lying about the 2020 election. Trump's lawyers saying the same thing, and so is Fox. The problem with his analysis is it's completely wrong. In fact, it's not wrong. It is correct. Juddlegum, looking around at everyone, including liberal media outlets, the New York Times, for instance, and saying, I'm not the one who's wrong, you're all wrong. Yeah, you're the odd person out. There's a reason why legal analysis from left to right says the same thing. You got to prove Trump knew he was lying. He goes on to say, a successful prosecution does not hinge on what Trump believed about the 2020 election. If Trump is convicted, it will be based on his actions. Trump had a right to lie about the 2020 election whether or not he believed his own lies. Okay, well, hold on. Lie is intentional misinformation. Being wrong is not lying. It's just being wrong. He says the problem is Trump working in concert with his co-conspirators, let's slow down there a minute and say his lawyers, pursued unlawful means of discounting legitimate votes and subverting the election results. Unlawful in what way? Challenging whether or not any vote is real. I can watch you fill out a ballot and drop in the box, and then I can say, I will file a legal challenge. Not illegal. Not illegal to do so. So in what way was it unlawful? Well, he continues. Judge says, the indictment details how Trump conspired to create fake sets of electors in 7 states. Then it sent these slates of electors to the Senate and the U.S. archivist in an attempt to cling to power. If proven, that's illegal, regardless of what Trump believed. And this is where Judd has just made it up completely. That's it. He just made this up. For what precedent, on what grounding does he have to say it is illegal to have alternate electors? In fact, it has been done before. Case in point, a tweet from me. Remember when Democrats refused to accept the results of the election so they convened their own electors to cast votes despite the state being certified Republican? In Hawaii in 1960, Nixon was winning by a small margin. Acting Governor James K. Aloha certified Republican electors, and they cast Hawaii's 3 electoral votes for Nixon. However, clear discrepancies existed in the official electoral tabulations, and Democrats petitioned for a recount. The court challenge was still ongoing at the time of the Electoral Counts Act safe harbor deadline, but Democratic electors still convened at the Lulani Palace on the constitutionally mandated date of December 19th and cast their votes for Kennedy. How could it be that Donald Trump believed he could have Republican electors cast ballots, fill out the paperwork, send it to the Senate, and then have those votes counted? Historical precedence. It had been done before, was never challenged, and is presumed illegal in all capacities because it is a part of our history. Wow. 7 states may be a bit more than the 1 state of Hawaii. Let me make it clear. Democrats convened electors despite having lost the election, despite no resolution from the courts, sent those electors to the Senate, and Richard Nixon as vice president chose, despite Republican certification, to count Democrat votes instead. Historical presence, staring you right in the face. They can't just ignore that. It is a fact. This happened, it was legally done, and is canon. JFK wins. Richard Nixon as vice president chose which votes to count. Despite the fact the Republicans were certified, Nixon said, no, I'm counting the uncertified alternate electors anyway. It was considered honorable that he did. Back to the post from juddlegum. He says, you can legitimately believe you won the election, and there are legitimate ways to press the claim forward, like filing a lawsuit. Creating a fake set of electors and then pressuring your VP to declare them valid electors is not one of your legal options. In fact, Judd is once again just making this up, because if he did any research on historical precedent, he'd see, in fact, this has been done before. So on what grounds does he have to make the argument, you can't do it, when historically it's been done? He then cites Mark Elias, a Democrat who's filing legal challenges for Democrats, to make an analogy which makes no sense in justification. He says, I talked to Mark Elias who explained it this way. I walk into a bank and I think they are wrongfully holding my money. I think my balance is $5,000. They think my balance is $0. That doesn't excuse me from robbing the bank. I can't pull out a gun and take the money. Did Donald Trump pull out a gun? You mean that Donald Trump convened a set of bank managers to go in and dispute the case? Is that it? Okay, so let's slow this down and go for the real analogy. You walk into a bank and you say, here's my statement showing $5,000, and they say, actually, your account is $0. So you say, okay, well, I've got about 2 months to deal with this, so I'm going to file a lawsuit against you over the claim that I have $5,000. And then you do. Okay? Yes, you're allowed to do that. Donald Trump filed legal challenges. They then say, but Donald Trump convened a false slate of electors. Let me play to your analogy, good sir. Donald Trump brings together a slate of expert bank managers, some who've had previously worked for the organization, some who are in the running for promotions to higher levels, but were deeply involved, and said in sworn statements that, yes, you have $5,000, right? And then you go to court and say, there it is. You then demand the judge look at your evidence and support your evidence. Hey, seems like it really comes down to those who would be adjudicating. All legally done, all legal challenges, and then Mike Pence could simply say yes or no. That's it, huh? It's illegal to tell the judge you think that they should count your evidence over the opponent's evidence. That's what court is. He says Smith spent times on evidence establishing Trump knew he was lying to show Trump's motivation. He's not required to prove motive under the law, but juries generally are looking for motive. In the case Smith is showing blah, 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 blah. You get the point. Ultimately, here's what matters. Donald Trump will be convicted. I do not see any scenario where Donald Trump is acquitted. The Supreme Court may intervene and shut this down, perhaps. But even Alan Dershowitz said if that happens, he'll be convicted first. It will be appealed, struck down, appealed again. The Supreme Court will be like, no way. No way. But we'll see. With all of these charges against Trump, I don't see a scenario where he's acquitted. These are all liberal jurisdictions. Now, I've said this before, you're in a civil war. I'll explain it this way. Democrats don't want Trump to win. They know they can't win. Trump's winning in the polls. He's already beating Biden. Biden has failed. They're using the power of law enforcement in their jurisdictions where their jury pools hate Donald Trump. The country is divided as such that it is all but guaranteed that when they convene a jury, like in DC, which is 92% Democrat or something like that, they're gonna vote to convict the guy. That will not be a fair trial. I'd like to make one last point about the indictment. Section 100, page 36. On January 6, starting in the early morning hours, the defendant again turned to knowingly false statements aimed at pressuring the vice president to fraudulently alter the election outcome, and raised publicly the false expectation that the vice president might do so. False, how many times say it? Knowingly false, fraudulent, false. If Donald Trump read a history book and saw that Democrats had done this in 1960, in what way did he think it was not true? These are the lies they're putting forward. Now, ultimately, the clip from Tucker Carlson suggests these people are demonic. I mean, figuratively, not literally, although some people may mean it literally. They're evil. They are evil, power-hungry psychopaths. But they understand that power is what what wins. We can stand in righteousness and hope that prevails. It's the best we can do. But in the meantime, you can clearly see Jack Smith, Merrick Garland, Joe Biden, deeply corrupt, deeply evil, self-interested people. Joe Biden told Merrick Garland to do this. They know what they're doing. They're just evil. There's no excuse. You can tell me that these guys could come to me and say, look, man, we know it's crossed the line, but if China wins this one and Trump is not doing what's right by this country, I'll be like, oh, okay. So you're lying to steal power for your way of life. Sorry, evil. Now you can argue that you're the lesser of the evils. Fine, whatever. Still evil. I'll leave it there.